Hi, I'm Stephen Patterson from Matisse Derivan, and today we're going to look at marbling. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and lay down my, my prep coat, or the first coat, which in this instance I'm using is black gesso. Now marbling over the years has been done generally in buildings and on columns and that sort of thing. But it can also be incorporated in your artwork. Now using the black gesso, you may want to actually thin it out a little bit with water, because the black gesso is normally applied with a spatula or a ruler onto canvas as a gesso. You could also use the Matisse background black, which gives a really nice matte finish. Now that the base coat has dried, we're going to mix the marbling gel and some colour, and we're going to sponge that on. So I'll do that now. So we just take the marbling gel, and what I do is put a little bit of colour across, and not too much. And we'll actually, I've used chromium green oxide there, and then just to make it a little bit more interesting, we'll put a couple of other colours, just a little dollop of phthalo green and a little bit of Matisse emerald in there, just to mix the colours up a little bit. Now firstly, your sea sponge needs to be damp, so you'd run it under a tap and squeeze it out so there's no more water in it. But you don't want to use a dry sea sponge. And here the sea sponge that we're using is not a bleached one. Don't use a bleached, or don't buy a bleached sea sponge, because they don't last nearly as long as just the cleaned ones. So what we're doing here is we're not adding too much colour on there, and we're just letting it mix on the palette. And then we'll go ahead and just put some on here. Now you don't want to get a pattern, so we're just going to randomly apply the green with the marbling gel across the whole board. A bit more of this colour, using plenty of this marbling gel, because we need this layer to stay open. For when we come back over the top with some white. So I'll leave it with that much. Now here we just want to run this slightly darker colour, the phthalo green, just add a little bit of difference there in colour. Now you don't want to cover the whole board. Alright, the next thing we do is we get out a little bit more of the faux finish and marbling gel. We're going to use some white here, and then we want to put the veins in. Now I use Matisse Flow normally. I'll just wet the brush a little bit, and we want it to be nice and wet with the marbling gel, and just pull the marbling gel, pull the white at least through the marbling gel. You can use a feather to do this, or Chinese calligraphy brush, or like this, the liner. And we're just going to run some white here. Hold the brush right on the end of the handle. Now as I say, the green has to remain wet, because we're going to now soften this back in. So we'll just run these veins through like this, and then taking a really soft brush, we're going to just blend the white, not all the way through, but just in certain areas. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can either stipple. You need to keep the brush dry. So we're just going to run through like this, stippling. This is still really wet, so you need to keep the brush nice and dry. And the other thing you can do is just blend, moving the paint away like this. Now you don't want to leave any brush strokes in there, because it makes it look too obvious. And you want to make sure your apron's on when you go drying your brush on it. And I can keep working this for some time. Once this is all dried, I'm going to put a varnish over the top, because this will all dry back in, it'll go really matte, and then we're going to put a varnish over the top of it to pop all the colours back out again. So now we've finished and we've softened all the areas we wanted to take back in. We've put as many of the veins on using the white as we wanted to. Now we just wait for the marble to finish drying, and we'll come back a bit later and put a coat of varnish over the top of it. So now the project's complete. I've just varnished this one side to show you how it brings the depth of colours out and gives that real third dimension. So remember, don't forget to varnish your marble. I'm Patterson. Thanks for watching.